Hello everyone, I'm Kim and welcome to my sewing room. Today I thought I would show you how to make some Christmas bunting. So what do you need for your bunting? Well, first of all you need your fabric. So last January I bought some fat quarter bundles from Pound Fabric. So I bought 3 lots which gave me about 15 fat quarters. That is a lot of fabric. You don't need that many to make up this bunting, but if you want to keep making it you can. So I've used some of it and I've reserved the rest of it for something else that I'm going to make, and you will get to see that in a separate video later. So I have my fabric. Obviously if you don't want to use Christmas fabric, just use whatever you want. It is still going to be fun and it's still going to look lovely. So as well as the fabric, you will need some binding. So this is 1 inch binding. Now this is bias binding, it doesn't need to be bias. And I got this off of Amazon. As well as that, you will need something called Heat and Bond Ultra. Now you only need this if you decide to put lettering onto your bunting. So I'm going to put some lettering, Merry Christmas, on my bunting. So I will be using this to adhere the lettering to the flags, and it looks like this. So it's a double-sided adhesive and it's a permanent adhesive. So it means that once this is used, the lettering will not come away. So you should be able to launder your bunting without the lettering coming away from the flag. You will also need a turning out tool to push out all of your flags and get a nice point on them. You'll need lettering, and I have put a link in the description to the lettering that I've created, and it's just 4 sheets of A4 paper, and it should just print off nice, and you just cut around each of the letters. So I will show you how I do that later in the video. So obviously you will need an iron. I know we've all got irons, but you will definitely need an iron, and obviously your sewing machine, a rotary cutter, scissors, whatever you use. So the sort of basic stuff that we all have in our sewing rooms. So once you have all of that, you're ready to go. So the first thing you need to decide is how big you want all of your flags to be. So I've chosen 2 sized flags. So I want a bigger flag for my lettering, and I want smaller flags to fit around the lettering and for the rest of the bunting. So my bigger flags are 7.5 inch squared, and they will hold the lettering. So I've made one up already. So this is what it will look like when it's finished with its lettering. So it's quite a nice size. And the smaller flags I have made up to 4.5 inches. So it's a little bit smaller, so you can see the comparison between the two. Now obviously if you want to make your flags bigger or smaller, just experiment with the sizing, but what you do need to do is just to make sure that you cut them squared. So I have made a template for my bigger flags. I made a template 7.5 inch squared for my large flags, because I also noticed that some of the fabric that came was directional. So I have this fabric here and you can see it is directional. So on the template I have drawn a diagonal line, so when I've cut out fabric that has a direction on it, I just make sure I cut it in this same direction that the fabric pattern is going. So once it's all folded over, that flag in the background follows in the right direction. Obviously if your fabric doesn't have a direction on it at all, like this, you can just cut it out in nice straight lines, grain wise and across the grain, so no problems with those at all. Once you've cut out all of your flags, you also need to just set aside a little bit of fabric for all of the lettering. So you can just literally, I've got a letter here, I've just got a scrap piece of fabric, and just make sure it fits on there, and then this will be adhered to your flag using the heat and bond. So let's start making our large flag. So our large flags will hold the lettering Merry Christmas, and Merry Christmas is 14 letters, so we need 14 large flags. So I've got one of my large flags here, and this is the directional one. So the direction of the pattern runs down, so you need to just make sure that you pull this corner, over to the other corner, and you literally stitch from that corner down, so the direction of the fabric is still going down into that corner. So once that's stitched, so I've done all of those as a batch, you'll get them sort of all stitched up down. So what you need to do is you need to turn them out. So the best way to turn them out is, first of all, just snip the very tip of the flag like that, so it just takes any bulk away from the end, and then just get your turning tool and push it through. Spend a bit of time pushing it through, and then once you've got a reasonable point on the end of your flag, doesn't have to be perfect, your flag is then turned out to the right side. And then what you need to do, iron it flat. So this seam line here stays in the center and it just follows down to the point, so you're just literally pressing it flat. So I'm just going to give it a quick press with my iron. So you can see the seam line there down the middle, and it sort of lines up to the point there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you have your flag on the other side. So to get our flag flat at the top, you have this triangle bit here. You need to just bring that down and just iron it flat, so the points are in the corner. So you just iron that flat. So there you can see you have this little triangle flap, and then you just tuck that inside the flag, and you've made your first large flag. So that is exactly the same process for the small flags. So you just do exactly the same for the small flags and they're done. But with these larger flags you have to also apply the lettering, and so that's a little bit different. So I'm just going to show you how to do the lettering. Right, so the first letter I'm going to put onto my flag is the C. So this is the first flag, and I'm going to use a contrast fabric. So I've got a nice bright red that will contrast nicely with the flag, and I have my cut out letter, so I've just cut around the letter C, and I also have cut out a piece of the heat and bond, which I know will cover that letter, because then that will then sit nicely on my fabric. So to start with, what I need to do is I need to get my scrap piece of fabric for my letter, and I've got my heat and bond. Now the heat and bond is a double-sided adhesive, and on one side you have the paper. So what you need to do is, on the reverse of your scrap piece of fabric, you need to make sure that the paper bit faces out and the sticky bit is going to be adhered to the back of that scrap fabric. So I'm going to do that with a dry iron. So I'm just going to apply some heat. Now when heat and bond is applied, it can be very hot, so be careful after you've adhered it to just let it cool a little bit before you handle it. So there it is, the paper bits there, the sticky bits in the middle, and you've got your lovely piece of contrast fabric. So once it's cooled down, you can then pin your letter to your fabric. So pin your letter to the front of the fabric, the right way round. So the letter is now pinned to that fabric. So you've got your letter, your fabric, and your heat and bond at the back. And I'm going to cut around the letter using my non-fabric scissors. So I'm just going to take my time So once you've cut around your letter, the letter will just, you can just take the letter away, and you've got this really nice letter in the contrast fabric, and you have the paper on the back from the heat and bond, and you just need to take that paper off. And when you take the paper off, you can see on the back of that letter it's shiny, and that's the adhesive. And you need to now position this on your flag. So what I've done, because I've already made up the Merry, I decided that I wanted all of my lettering to be 1.2 inches from the top, so it sits quite nicely into my flag. And because I have larger lettering, like the M's quite large, you need to make sure that your lettering fits onto your flag, and also when you have the binding at the top, that the binding doesn't overlap any lettering. So I decided on 1.2 inches. So on my flag I have used an erasable pen and I have just marked 1.2 inches. So when I iron my letter onto my flag, it will sit on that line there. So I'm going to iron that on now. So there we have our letter C. And then you move on through and do all the others and work your way through all of your lettering. So I'm going to do that, and I will see you in a minute. So all the large flags have now been finished with Merry Christmas on them. So you can see as I go through them, I have the contrasting letter, and I've worked in a colour format of red, white and green. You can obviously do it random, do whatever you want. I've also used Christmas fabric for my letters. Yet again, you can use anything. You can use scrap fabric if you want. It just needs to contrast really so that it stands out. Also, at the beginning of the video, I didn't mention how much fabric you needed for bunting, because it's really difficult to estimate how much you need, because everybody will make different sized flags. They will be different lengths. It just depends where you're going to put them in your room. So basically you can make as little as you want, or you can just keep going. And even if you make some up and it's not enough, you can come back and make more. It is limitless. So, and it is such fun. You'll also notice with the lettering, when I measured 1.2 inches down from the top, all of them have been marked at 1.2. So when they're up on the wall, they will, you know, have that uniformed look, so they won't be all higgledy-piggledy. So that was quite important for me to make that measurement. And also you can see when you've got something like I on a flag, there is plenty of room for it. But when you have the M, which is obviously a bigger letter, you have to make sure that it fits. Even with that 1.2 measurement down, make sure that it fits onto your flag. So when you are making your flags up and you're deciding on the size and everything and the lettering, just make sure it all fits before you start ironing the lettering on. Now this lettering's been applied with Heat and Bond Ultra, and this is a no-sew product, so you just iron it on and that is it. And it shouldn't go under the needle, because if it goes under the needle it can gunk your needle up. But if you decide that you want to sew your lettering on, then definitely use Heat and Bond Light, because that's a temporary hold, so it will, you know, hold that letter into place that you can sew around it. And so that's another option for you. So now we have all of our larger flags finished, we can start working on the smaller flags. So my small flags were 4.5 inch squared, and they are made up in exactly the same way as the large ones. So I have a bit of fabric here, she says, where is it? Here it is. So I have a smaller flag here. Now this one I've cut on the diagonal because it has a directional print. Obviously if yours is not directional, it really doesn't matter. And if you're not bothered about the direction of your print, you just want cut out squares, then, you know, just do what you want. It's just what you want. So you have your square and you fold the right sides together, so from point to point, like so. and then you just literally stitch down the one side which follows the direction of the fabric. Now when I've done mine in a batch, so I've run them off under the machine. So I've just cut out as many as I think I need, and I've just kept going. Obviously if you need more, you can make more, and even if you've made some this year and you think, oh, I've had enough of it, you can add to it next year. So I've already started the process of making my flags up, so we are nearly there. So now we have our large and small flags finished, we are coming to the fun bit where we're going to bring it all together to make some actual bunting. So I am making this bunting for my son George and his girlfriend Danny, and I don't know how they want to display it, whether they want to display it in one run or have it in sections where they can have one piece wrapped around the banister or on a wall. I really don't know how they are going to use it. So what I've decided is to break it up into sections, so then it gives them the choice. So if they want to run their bunting in one stream, they can just attach each of the sections. If they want to break the sections up, they have the option to do that, so they can maybe have one section over the banister, another section on a wall, you know, another section across the fireplace. You know, it just depends, and I really don't know, you know, for you also what size you've made your flags and how long you've made your bunting, because you may have made lots of flags and have a real ream of it going on. So the best thing to do is you make the decision of, you know, where you're going to hang it and where you're going to put your wall hanging tabs and also your connectors. So if I show you how I've done them, then you can decide how you want yours to be made up. So first of all, I decided on the section, so I made a section for the merry lettering. So here is the merry lettering. So each of the beginning of the binding has started with the smaller flags, and I picked a sort of colour format that follows the same as the lettering, and the flags actually fit sandwich in between the binding. So the binding sort of encloses the flag, so you can see it's enclosed on both sides and there's no raw edges, which I absolutely love about this bunting. So I've got my small flags at the beginning and I've just run a few of those off, and then I have introduced the larger flags with their letters, so you can see how it runs. And you might decide that you want your lettering further apart or closer together. It is all a personal preference, and this is where you just make it your own. And I just sort of put my flags quite close together, especially the small ones, and just kept on running them. So you do get through a lot of binding. So what I've decided is the merry bit for me is one section. So I have put 2 tags first of all on the ends. So these are what I call the wall fastenings, where you attach them to, you know, either end of the wall where you're going to display it. And this is just soft elastic. And this elastic you can also find on the face masks that we wore through the pandemic. So if you've got any of those lying around, use them up, because it's, you know, they won't go to waste then. But you can also buy this stuff anywhere. It's just soft elastic, and you just make a little loop and you stitch it into your binding. And what I've also done is halfway through the bunting I put one in the middle. So I put one behind the R here. You can't see it face on, but if you do decide to use it, or if they decide to use it, it's there. So it just literally sits at the back there, and if they decide that they want to use it, it's there for them to use. So they're all of the wall fastenings. So to actually attach each section of the bunting together, what I've done is I've used a press stud. You can use anything here. You can use buttons, Velcro. You can even just use ribbon and just tie it in a bow. I mean, it's as simple as that. So just find what you have in your stash. I've obviously got lots of studs and I like using those, so I thought I'd use some of those up. And what I've done is, if I decide then I want to make this piece of bunting join this piece of bunting, I've got my studs at either end of the binding, and I just literally clip them into place, and then I've got my bunting again running in one sort of stream. So that is my bunting. Now, I haven't finished it all yet because I'm still busy making the Christmas bit, and I decided to make a few more flags and do another section, so I'm just going to make some more, just to make lots more bunting, because I really enjoyed making it. So I'm going to continue making some of my bunting, but you have everything you need to make your bunting, and it would be really nice if you could leave a comment below just to let me know how you've got on making your bunting. This is a great fun thing to make, not just for you but to make it for other people. So I'm also doing this as part of the a gift for November, and it's great also for the kids to join in and have fun, because they can have fun just placing all the flags and getting involved. But it's really got me into the Christmas mood, so I hope you've enjoyed this short tutorial and it all makes perfect sense to you, and I will see you all very soon. Take care. Bye.